Chapter 12. The Real World. In the wake of Mountain Cap's momentous victory in the NCAA Golf Championship, fate dealt him a devastating blow that would shake the very foundations of his existence, plunging him into a maelstrom of both chaos and despair. It all began innocently enough, relatively speaking of course, with Mountain's ill-fated encounter with a particularly mischievous crustacean, one that would leave him scratching himself for weeks, or even months to come. For once, even Mountain was disappointed in his own willpower, or lack thereof, because he could not bring himself to stop calling either of the girls that he suspected may have given him the crabs. "Oh well, we all have them now," he was overheard saying to the less clingy of the two unkept ladies. To the clingier of the two females, Mountain lamented that it could be from any toilet seat on the Carbondale Strip. Mountain then thought, only to himself, about how ironic it was that people called it the Carbondale Strip, since the strip clubs were actually another 10 or so miles to the north, in beautiful DeSoto, Illinois. But a plethora of other problems were not finished with Mountain as of yet, for even as he battled the relentless onslaught of his tiny tormentors, a far greater adversary loomed even larger on the forefront. And on one fateful night, shrouded in darkness and bathed in the sickly hum of rock and roll, Mountain's world came crashing down around him. While attending an Ozzy Osbourne concert adorned with a vagina-themed necktie, and rolling himself down the hills of Riverport Amphitheater into groups of girls in efforts to strike up conversations, or bowling for chicks, as Mountain liked to call it, he was caught by St. Louis police in possession of the nefarious substance known as cocaine. Mountain next found himself staring down the barrel of a prison sentence, a grim reminder of the perils of temptation and the consequences of no longer being treated by the world like a collegiate man-child. But luckily for Mountain, in his hour of need, he found a rock to lean upon, and perhaps his only true savior, his old friend Austin Graff, whose unwavering loyalty and steadfast support would prove to be the anchor that kept Mountain from drifting even further out into the abyss. With Austin's help and legal funding, Mountain avoided the cold, unforgiving embrace of prison walls, and instead found himself on a path that led him straight to rehab, that hallowed sanctuary of healing and hope. And so began Mountain's year-long sojourn in drug and alcohol rehab, where he would truly grapple with his inner demons and confront his three deepest of fears, being without booze, illicit substances, and golf. But for Mountain, even in the depths of despair, there was still hope to be found. Mountain was able to finally spend some time alone and cure his ongoing case of the crabs, as well as his addiction to the pair of ladies that he likely acquired them from. However, as Mountain continued upon his journey of both self-discovery and transformation, he sensed that Austin wanted to distance himself from the hot mess that he had now devolved into. Perhaps it was in efforts to help Mountain, or perhaps only in efforts to protect himself, but Mountain could sense that Austin was likely willing to throw more money at his almost lost cause, but did not want to throw any more time at it, at least not right now, as Austin needed all his focus for professional golf. As Austin Graff's Rise Up the PGA leaderboard resembled a rocket launch, Mountain Cap found himself on a roller coaster of emotions, a tumultuous ride through the peaks and the valleys of pride, envy, and a touch of existential crisis. Austin, with his swing smoother than a jazz saxophonist, carving his name into the hallowed turf of golfing lore, each stroke of his club echoing like a symphony of success. Meanwhile, Mountain, with his own game now resembling more of a slapstick comedy than a masterpiece, could not help but feel like the sidekick in this grand narrative. As Austin's top 10 tournament finishes piled up like discarded beer cans at a frat house party, Mountain could not help but marvel at the spectacle. His friend's ascent was like watching a phoenix rise from the ashes, while he felt more like a pigeon scavenging for crumbs of shit in the shadow of greatness. Yet amidst the swirling whirlpool of envy and self-doubt, there remained a stubborn spark of hope flickering in Mountain's heart. For he knew that Austin's success was not just a stroke of luck or a twist of fate, but the result of many years of dedication, determination, and a touch of sheer madness. And so, as Austin basked in the glow of the limelight, Mountain found himself caught in a storm of conflicting emotions. He cheered for his friends' victories while secretly nursing the wounds of his own unfulfilled dreams, like a jester applauding the king from the sidelines, with only his smile masking the ache in his heart. Years slid by as the relentless march of time carried Mountain Cap further away from his glory days on the golf course. He found himself ensnared in a tangled web of frustration, akin to trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded, while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. Each swing of the club felt like trying to coax a symphony from a kazoo, the sweet melody of success forever eluding his grasp. Gone were the days of Mountain basking in the limelight of victory, replaced by the harsh glare of reality as Mountain grappled continually with the harsh truth that his golf game resembled a three-legged horse attempting to navigate an obstacle course. It was as if his clubs had been cursed by a vengeful genie, transforming them into instruments of torture rather than tools of triumph. And yet, despite his efforts to play lip service at turning over a new leaf and embracing a straighter and narrower path, Mountain found himself careening off course like a wayward rocket with a faulty navigation system. His attempts at faking sobriety felt like trying to swim upstream in a river of molasses, the currents of temptation threatening to drag him under at every turn. But perhaps the cruelest irony of all was the realization that his demons had not been banished by his newfound commitment to the appearance of sobriety, but merely lain dormant, biding their time like slumbering dragons waiting to awaken from their centuries-long slumber. For every step forward he took, it seemed that he was dragged 2 steps back by the specter of his past mistakes. At one point, Mountain even wore the same Rehab is for Quitters t-shirt for almost an entire fortnight straight. As the sun dipped below the horizon of Mountain's life, it casted long shadows across the barren landscape of both his hopes and his dreams. Mountain found himself at a crossroads, teetering on the precipice between redemption and ruin. Would he summon the courage to face his demons head-on, or would he allow himself to be swallowed whole by the gaping maw of despair? The answer remained shrouded in uncertainty, as Mountain struggled time and time again to earn his PGA Tour card. He became slowly convinced that he was somehow not as good of a golfer when encapsulated in a shell of apparent sobriety. He began to eke out a living as a caddy in Mesa, Arizona, where he lived a life of both loneliness and despair. He wondered out loud if caddying for these golfers, every last one of them less skilled than he was, both mentally and physically, was going to be his rock bottom. And that is when something finally happened that would forever change his trajectory.